we're going to rate it like we did rating the races before. The 5 categories: memorability, excitement, unpredictability, competitiveness, and intensity. So we're using our old system of rating the races in order to rate the season. And I think that's a fair way to do it.
I think it is I kind of like the idea, honestly. I think it's a pretty good way to try and, why not?
No, I think it's great. I think it's going to be a lot of fun to go through each of these and give our case for both, and then at the end average everything up and overall rate the season. 10 being the most memorable thing you've ever seen since sliced bread.
Well,
or ever since like maybe the 1992 season, or if you're Formula One ran the James Hunt and Niki Lauda season, I think it was 76 that happened. Or if it was just a dud. Number one, not even worth your time. But I'm going to start off with you unless you want me to go first.
You can go first.
All right. So I'm starting off with memorability. And I'm just going to go ahead and say it like this. 2020 is going to be a year that nobody on earth, whether you're a sports fan or not, whether you're a NASCAR fan or not, is not going to soon forget.
Yeah, I think that's safe to say.
It all came to a halt in March, I believe. March time frame. Everything just stopped. Sports stopped.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I remember talking to Brian Barnhill, who was racing the Atlanta truck race, and saying, "What's the deal?" He said, "We're at the credential trailer. We can't get in."
Ooh.
And then they said, "Nope, they sent us away." And then the news flash came over from Bob Podcast saying, "Season suspended." We didn't even know at that time, were we going to get the whole race season in, or the first 4 races, was that it? Is this season a wash?
Yeah.
And NASCAR, and we've said it so many times on this show in the past few weeks, that NASCAR is the only sport to complete their season in full. Hockey couldn't do it. Basketball couldn't do it. Baseball couldn't do it. Football, I think, will be able to do it.
Yeah, football is
one of the exceptions. And college football's had to change up their stuff. They're not even playing non-conference games. It's just SEC versus SEC, ACC versus ACC. So it's totally a off schedule with them too. But NASCAR did it. Yeah, they sacrificed Watkins Glen, Sonoma, Chicagoland. A lot of tracks got sacrificed in this shape-up. Introduction of 5 double headers. Darlington coming back after the pandemic was over. Dover, Michigan, Pocono, and Charlotte for the 600 and 500 kilometer race. On top of that, the Roval. Charlotte had 3 races.
I thought those races were a great segue into getting back into the season, honestly.
Very much so. And on top of that, iRacing
was
a great gap filler. NASCAR was fortunate to not have this one-on-one, we'll just say basketball, LeBron James versus another basketball player. I can't even tell you another basketball player's name. And it behoove me not to say Michael Jordan because I know he doesn't play anymore. But just playing one-on-one and playing NBA 2K, whatever, you actually got drivers. And yes, it's a video game that people take way too seriously sometimes. Trust me, I know.
Yes, I know too.
And filled that gap, that 10-week gap between the end of Phoenix and them returning back to Darlington. Clint Boyer, he got bubbled at Bristol. Bubba Wallace losing his sponsorship, Blue Emu, for saying, "Okay, I quit."
Yeah, and just leaving.
Mm-hmm. It was very interesting to see just the adaptability that not only the drivers didn't have to do it, but they bought the whole stuff. Denny Hamlin bought this awesome rig that I wish I could have, but I don't have the money to even think about buying it. And one of the best parts about that was his daughter turning off the remote with the TV. And he said, "My screen just went back," and she, and just ran off. That was so much. And you look at that at the time, it's like, who cares? It's a video game. No, he didn't care. Nobody should really care about it. But NASCAR did that along with cooperation with Fox in order to bring us something.
And you know what that really did in turn is boost sales for simulation games as it is, because I mean, I think there was for a couple weeks there, you know, if you were to try and go and get any kind of setup on like Amazon or anything like that, steering wheels or anything, I mean, you were tough luck. You couldn't find anything anymore. People were buying it up left and right. People saw it and they were like, you know, hey, we've been missing out this entire time.
And I will tell you this firsthand. I went to remotech.com and bought a new steering wheel, pedals, shifter, button box, the whole nine. And it didn't get here. I bought that in April, I believe, when I bought the computer, and that didn't get there until August.
Yeah.
So yeah, trust me, it's a booming industry. But
yeah.
Man, and then we get into the whole Kyle Larson situation.
Ooh. Yep.
During that whole pandemic thing, during the iRacing thing, drops a racial slur. He's out. Matt Kenseth is in. It was great seeing Matt Kenseth race again at Darlington and at Bristol. Great seeing him do that. Him coming back, and great for him coming back in 2021 to that number 5 Hendrick car. Can't wait to see that. The Daytona 500 was an awesome event.
Yes, it was.
Ryan Newman's crash at the end. I met a lot of people there. I can't wait till 2021 in order to see them again. The Southern 500, my first race back since this whole thing started, was amazing. Met a lot of people there too, but really just focused on the race. Like I said, everything went away once the cars went by in the first hot lap. No pandemic, no election season. It was just racing. And I was where I wanted to be during that time. The Bristol night race opened my eyes more to what the problem is with short track racing in NASCAR right now. But I tell you that, a total of 5 races in person, 3 Cup, 1 Xfinity, and 1 truck. Overall memorability for me for the 2020 season is a 10.
Okay.
There will be no way soon that I will forget about this season, and nor any sports fan or any NASCAR fan or any IndyCar fan will forget about this season anytime soon. And for me, overall memorability a 10 for that reason, because one day I'm going to tell my kids about this once they read about this in the history books and tell them what it was like going through this. Now I'm going to turn it over to you, Preston.
Wow.
Memorability for the 2020 NASCAR season.
I can't top any of that. That's you did a really good job over there. Wow. I'm not even sure what I'm going to say after I give my rating, because I don't really give it. You just took it and ran with it. I agree with you. The 2020 season is something we are not going to soon forget whatsoever. You know, like you said, when the first news broke of the season being suspended, we had a couple well, at first I think it was 1 or 2 races they said are, you know, pushed back for now. And then it came out that, yeah, we're not going to be racing for a little bit. And that kind of sucked. It was a little hurtful. I was like, man, we're losing everything in this world at this point. So, but it was awesome to me. So I gave memorability for the season. I didn't go 10, but I gave it a 9.
Okay.
Because there were a couple, I mean, I look at a couple of things here and there, but I mean, I thought it was really cool to see Darlington get 2 races to start when we came back. That was pretty cool. I thought it was pretty neat, especially racing during the day, which I've missed in general.
The only thing about that was we weren't allowed to go.
Yeah, that's what sucked about that. I was really hoping that people were going to be allowed to go, but that's fine. You know, we still got it, which is okay.
Right.
I enjoyed both Charlotte races. I thought it was pretty cool to have that 500-kilometer race. Even though it was a shorter race, I thought it was great. I thought it was fantastic. It was like 200-something laps.
Not only there, but at Darlington as well. That 500 kilometers as well. But it was a shorter race. That was when the whole Chase Elliott flipping the bird to Kyle Busch happened.
I think that's something that maybe NASCAR could look at in the future. I think it's if you were to do a doubleheader for some, you know, any other weekend other than Pocono, I mean, why not have a long race and then a short feature? I thought both that race and the one at Charlotte was great. I mean, the one at Charlotte was, I can't remember how many laps it was. It was like 200 something.
All I know is that Chase Elliott won it.
I thought it was just cool to see. So I thought that was pretty neat. Yeah, we had to sacrifice a couple tracks here and there, but you know what? It was all for the good of the sport to get him back and to run a full season. So I applaud NASCAR for getting a full season in, like we said before. So I gave it a 9. I definitely will not forget it. And I'm sure years down the road when I get old, I don't look old, but when I get old,
yeah,
I will talk about it to people, and people will say the 2020 season, I'm sure that'll be in books in school. I'm sure I'll hear my kids talk about it. I'll say, oh man, back in 2020, I remember 2020 sports wise.
Yeah, sports wise, everything else you want to forget about, but sports wise, you remember 2020 if you're a sports fan, most definitely. So now we're going to go from memorability. You gave it a 9, I gave it a 10, to excitement. And it started off with Daytona for me. That Ryan Newman crash. To coming down to the finish, him blocking Ryan Blaney, Blaney turning him, however you want to look at it. Crazy flip Newman did. And Newman going to the hospital. That was crazy. But then after that, and I have it written down here, short track racing needs work. Richmond, Martinsville, Bristol, New Hampshire, Dover, and Phoenix. The racing there, for me, and I'm not speaking for the fans, but I think they would agree with me that needs work. That needs definite work in the future in order to sustain any type of model that NASCAR wants to have with short track racing. Fans want more of them back. I want to get rid of them because it's not the typical beating and banging. It's not fun anymore for me, the short tracks at NASCAR.
I can agree with you on that because, like you said, NASCAR wants to bring that back, and I know that they're looking at changing Fontana into a short track as well. So,
and I'm fine with it if the racing quality was there, but if it's with the aero package or with anything else, and just a mindset of the drivers, I feel like it's not there. I feel like it'd be a waste of time trying to bring back. And we said it last week, if you try to make the excitement unnatural, it's going to show. Mm-hmm. It needs to be organic, at least for me, in order for it to go. And the drivers need to go for it. The heck with what the sponsors say. Are you a race car driver or are you a poster boy for Discount Tire, Keselowski?
Yeah.
Are a Chase Elliott? Are you the pretty boy for Napa, or are you a race car driver? Mm-hmm. Fans can see through that.
Yes, they can.
And yeah, NASCAR is a multi-million-dollar sport, and NASCAR needs those sponsors, and the teams need those sponsors in order to keep going. But I think more money will come in if they say, instead of just saying, have at it.
Yeah, that whole phrase kind of got old.
Because it didn't show up.
Yeah.
Because people are still sent to the trailer. People were still got in trouble and got their hands slapped for letting them have at it. Mm-hmm. Make up your mind, NASCAR. But that needs to be fixed for sure. And NASCAR being the first sport back, doing any type of activity post-shutdown was exciting for me. Overall excitement for me for the 2020 season, a 6.
Okay.
It could have been better, a lot better, I feel like. But it also thankful that we had NASCAR back and that we had that ability to watch the sport that I love back doing its thing and running the whole season. All 3 series running the whole season. Crowning undisputed champions for the Truck Xfinity Cup is awesome. And I'm excited for that and happy for that more so. But overall excitement, a 6 for me. Preston, how would you rate the excitement on the level for NASCAR in 2020?
It's funny. I, too, rated the excitement at a 6 as well, which is funny.
Right.
That's funny. So, it just wasn't like, you touched on it very well. Short track racing, not there. Let's put it that way. For me, just racing at other tracks in general was just not there either. I can tie, when we get later, on into the other ratings of other things, I can tie a few different ones to just the championships at Phoenix alone. I'm not talking Truck Series, I'm talking like the Cup Series. That wasn't a whole lot of excitement either.
No, it wasn't at all.
There was some, like you said, Daytona race, great. wow, what a typical Daytona. I guess you could say.
Typical
Daytona, blocking, crashing. Ryan Newman, that was a scary situation. For me, it was watching on TV. I was just like, at first, I was like, holy crap, and then, we had to wait so long, and then they were putting up all these tarps around. I was like,
and trust me, nobody left.
Yeah,
nobody
I was
left.
Watching on TV, I'm texting you. I'm just like, oh man, I don't know what's going on over there, but watching on TV doesn't look very good. So
I think we waited, or at least I did, and I know a lot of people did, about 15 minutes after the checker flag fell, and they were extricating Newman in the ambulance driving by us until we left.
Yeah.
It took a while. It took a good minute, but he was stuck in there for a while. But
I mean, it was that, and I mean, I remember my rant that I had, the Heyman rant for after that, when everybody was just laying it in on Denny Hamlin,
and nobody knew, especially Newman, that I don't think even Newman knew how bad it was.
Yeah.
But man, I mean, I don't know. To me, it was just one of the craziest things. It wasn't exciting. The finish was exciting, but the factor, because I've been there before with Justin Wilson. It's like, I've seen this before.
Yeah. So, and there's other things that I was not very fond of this year. It sucked not having practice and not having qualifying. So that didn't really add to the excitement, because usually qualifying can make some weekends a little bit more exciting.
Yeah, and the practice can show everybody, at least I know I depended on practice and qualifying a lot for my fantasy picks, and it wasn't happening this time.
You're exactly right. Fantasy would always fall down. I would always have to watch practice. I would always be making sure I'm watching practice. Just like I try to watch practice for Formula 1, but the schedule is so hard to do that sometimes because it's really early in the morning when practice happens.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I mean, I miss the days of... I don't know why I'm saying it. I missed the days like it was years and years ago. I mean, just last year, but practice. I mean, we missed practice, qualifying, and just the way NASCAR handled qualifying, which was, we're just going to do it like this, and we're going to draw 1 through 12 from the top 12 and standing, and like that's not fun.
No, it wasn't fun, and I can see it progressing into better stuff. And if you want to, I don't mind doing the random 1 through 12. If you're in the top 12 in points. But then when the playoffs start, don't keep the playoff drivers off front. We talked about that last week. If you want to hear about it, listen to the last week's episode with Charlie. And we went more into detail about that. But
and and not only with fantasy, though, with practice, I mean, I know that a lot of people have said, what's the big deal about practice? Those drivers should know that they're high caliber, some of the best in the world. They should know.
Yeah.
And they have simulators. That's great, but simulators are not always the best.
No.
And I don't care if you have a Kevin Harvick out there that should know every single track. Practice still helps the weekend when it comes to the race, because you have to get qualifying runs down. You have to get race setups in. And going to the track and having to base everything off of notes. I mean, I don't know. Just wasn't really the most exciting of the season.
Right. It definitely wasn't, but that's awesome, man. But overall excitement, how would you rate it?
6. It was.
Oh yeah, you rated it the same as me.
Yeah, same as you, 6. So.
Okay. Now we go into unpredictability, and unpredictability for me, two names. Kevin Harvick and Denny Hamlin dominated 2020. Dominated.
Mm-hmm.
Kevin Harvick with 9 wins. Denny Hamlin with 7 wins of the year. I can't even remember the last time a driver had 9 wins in a season in the Cup Series. I think it was Jeff Gordon. If I'm not mistaken.
Well, when he won, I don't remember. Are you talking about the same year where he won like 6 out of 7 weeks in a row or something like that?
Something like where he just dominated. I think it was like 94 or something.
Yeah, it was in the 90s. I think it was late 90s.
Where he just dominated. Come to chase for the playoff formats was the most unpredictable that you could have. 3 races, elimination. 3 races, elimination. 3 races, elimination. Final 4 championship. Harvick didn't make it to the Final 4. Everybody bet their money on them. A lot of people bet their money on them. Denny Hamlin makes it to the Final 4. Not even a factor.
No.
In that Phoenix race. Chase Elliott comes through all that and wins the championship for 2020. He earned it. He did. But the playoff format was the reason for the amount of unpredictability there was in 2020. That was the only thing. Hamlin dominated, Harvick dominated, and for that, unpredictability for me for the 2020 season is a 5.
Did you look over my notes?
No, you stole, if anything, you stole my notes.
No, I did not.
But it wasn't really unpredictable, except there at the end. You don't really know who's going to do well at Phoenix, and then all of a sudden with the rules package the way it is, with the high downforce, low horsepower package, if you're out front, you're out front. Chase Elliott did what he needed to do and won. Good on him. But there was really no unpredictability throughout the season.
Yeah, I agree.
We had a lot of drivers win races. You had Alex Bowman win. You had Keselowski win. Logano win.
Kurt Busch
Blaney win. Austin Dillon won. You had a lot of drivers win races. But nobody talked about them. Everybody was talking about Hamlin and Harvick. And then Inner and Chase won 5 races of the season. Great job on him. And won the championship. But it wasn't unpredictable.
You know what that kind of sounds like when you say that everybody was just talking about Hamlin and Harvick? It kind of reminds me of like last season. I think it was last season with the Xfinity Series where they were just talking about the 3.
Yeah, the Power 3.
That was it. That was it. Seemed like any race that you would watch last season in the Xfinity Series, it was always just about the 3.
No, you make a good point there, man.
And I got really tired of that really quick. But I mean, that's for another day. But I mean, when you talk about that, that's what I compare it to. It was almost like last year at Xfinity. It was just the 3, the 3, the 3, the 3.
Yep, and even Hamlin, Chase wasn't even a factor in there to me. It was all Hamlin and Harvick, and I thought those were going to be the guys going down to the wire at Phoenix for the win at the championship. And that didn't come to pass due to Martinsville and the format and the way we are in right now. But overall unpredictability for me is a 5. And based on what your reaction was to me reading that, I take it yours is a 5 as well.
Yeah, I almost rated it a little lower, but I went and kind of thought about other things and, like, you know, the fact that we had other winners, but, you know, and then, of course, towards the end when Harvick didn't make it and things like that. And I was like, man, I can't really rate it too low because that would just be, I feel like that would be wrong. I don't want to go against everybody, but yeah, I would say 5. It just, like you said, and I said it for, I guess, for the longest time in some of the episodes, is that anytime we'd ever come back after a race and we would go over it on the next episode and we just talk about rating, and I'd just be like, it was all right. It was okay. I mean, there was just nothing. There wasn't, like I said, Kevin Harvick and Denny Hamlin were dominating a lot, and the way the rules package sits, it's just not, I don't know. I don't really find it unpredictable.
Yeah, it doesn't really foster.
And, you know, I don't want to go against and say, you know, I don't like to see Kevin Harvick win a lot or Denny Hamlin, but it's just not there.
Right.
You know, so.
No, I hear you. 100%.
I give it a 5. So, hey, it just, like you said, man, when you brought that whole thing up about all the people were talking about was Hamlin and Harvick, even though we had other winners, I was just like, man, it's just like Xfinity Series all over again last year. Just, wow.
No, I hear you, man.
There are other drivers out there that we can talk about, but we're just focused on these 2 and 3 guys that are just winning all the time.
Yeah. Kind of sounds familiar, doesn't it? I mean, to me, it kind of sounds a little familiar, like what's going on there. But that's a topic for maybe next week's episode. Yeah. We're going from unpredictability to competitiveness. Now, competitiveness for me, Talladega and Daytona were both the most competitive tracks on the series, on the circuit this season. They ran 2 races each. And the reason why they're competitive to me is because it is the great equalizer. Tapered spacer racing, restrictor plate racing, whichever you want to call it.
I still call it restrictor plate racing.
Old school fans normally do. Old school drivers normally do. Newer fans will call it tapered spacer racing or super speedway racing, whatever you want to call it. Either way, Daytona and Talladega, 2 races apiece in the season on the oval. I know Daytona had the road course, but that was totally different. Was the most competitive races for me. Pack racing, excitement, the whole shebang right there in one race, in my opinion. you go into the short tracks and intermediate tracks, such as the Charlottes in Texas, the Bristols, the Martinsvilles, and this kind of touched on memorability. The competitiveness wasn't there. For me, it wasn't. The season really was dominated by Kevin and Harvick. We talked about this, talking about the unpredictability. So the competitiveness for me overall, just to break it down here real quick, we're not going to harp on Harvick and Hamlin again, was overall a 5 for me. And I think that's being a bit gracious, but I'm going to throw it over to you. Competitiveness for the 2020 NASCAR season.
I was a little bit more gracious on it. I gave it a 6.
Okay.
I tried to look through it, but talking competitiveness, I mean, you're totally right, and I'm sure everybody that listens would agree that between Talladega and Daytona, I mean, those are the two most anticipated tracks we go to every year. And I also trying to look at competitiveness, in terms of, I mean, even when we went to Bristol for the All-Star race, like, there wasn't really much there going on. I mean, I know it's not a points-paying event, but still, I would have thought that just maybe there was going to, even though we didn't really see a whole lot going on in short tracks to begin with, I was hoping that maybe the All-Star race would be a little bit different.
No, I hear you.
And 100% it was not.
I hear you.
So it was, I feel like I was really I thought I wasn't going to be too gracious. I thought competitiveness, rating it at a 6 was going to be a little bit low, but wow, hearing yours at a 5, now kind of, okay, I feel okay about it then.
No, I totally hear you, man.
So
competitiveness is 6 for you. That's being gracious, but
yeah,
okay.
Yeah. I had to be a little bit gracious.
I'm right there in the middle there. Competitiveness of 5. Then we get to our final one, intensity. And to me, intensity means you're on the edge of your seat the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
And I brought them up before. Talladega and Daytona. Talladega, Daytona, and the playoffs were the most intense parts of the 2020 NASCAR season. Daytona and Talladega we just covered. Super speedway racing, pack racing, anything goes. Anybody has a chance to win, be there at the end. Bad call or not at the end. And if you want to go back, listen to an episode called Bad Call, NASCAR's Blown Call, and you'll see why we didn't think that was a highly rated race.
That was the Talladega one.
That was the Talladega one where I feel DiBenedetto got one stolen from him.
Yeah, You definitely need to go back and listen to that one.
The playoffs were intense for somewhat. I was at the first playoff race there at Darlington and the first cutoff race at Bristol. I was hoping for more. First of all, it was great being back at the racetrack. I wouldn't have been anywhere else in the world if I had to. If I didn't have to. So it was great being back at the racetrack. But what I will say is that especially Bristol, wasn't the exact Bristol that I was hoping for it. Being a cutoff race, and this is what NASCAR was planning for, being a cutoff race at Bristol Motor Speedway, you're hoping for that beating and banging. People want to buy their tickets for the 2021 race right then and there. That didn't happen, and now they're resorting to putting dirt on a oval pavement track in order to bring fans and fill them into the seats. To me, that shouldn't be the way NASCAR does it. That shouldn't be the way Bristol does it. I think they're going about this all wrong in order to make races more intense. Again, they're not doing it organically. They're doing it in a way that it facilitates, let's make this a wrestling event. Let's throw in a steel cage.
Yeah.
That will make it more fun and entertaining for the fans. And for that, intensity for the 2020 NASCAR season is a 5. Middle of the road again. Throw it over to Preston. How would you rate the intensity for the 2020 NASCAR season?
Right there, 4. That's it.
Okay.
You pretty much touch on everything that I've thought of too. And I'll even harp on it again. Like you said, with Bristol being the cutoff race, intensity, you want people on the edge of their seats, and if you're NASCAR, you want them to, man, I want to buy my tickets for next time around. I remember when Kevin Harvick at Darlington when he tried to knock Kyle Busch in the head through the window, and that was on the ticket for the next year. That picture in the background, and that's what you look for. That's what you want. And it doesn't come down to intensity doesn't come down to if the leaders are beating and banging, but it's just the passion in general throughout the whole field. Heck, we can go back to like Charlotte a couple years ago, I think it was, when Denny Hamlin was, I think he was trying to wreck Keselowski at the end of the race, and then Keselowski was.
I think that was the All-Star race, wasn't it?
No, I don't think it was the All-Star race. I think it was a regular race, but it was. I mean, Keselowski was beating and banging and tearing up through the garage area, which was funny. And then Kenseth came in and was putting Keselowski in a headlock, and that was good NASCAR. And was that the same year that Jeff Gordon tried to put Keselowski in?
I want to say that year was 2014, I think, at Texas.
Yeah, it might have been the year before, but I mean, that's. To me, intensity isn't just the leaders battling it out, but it's the overall passion of everybody. And I don't know, maybe I just didn't see that this year. I don't know, maybe that's just me. I didn't see a whole lot of that. And I guess between Denny Hamlin and, between Denny Hamlin and Kevin Harvick winning so much, I just think just wasn't there. I don't think any intensity whatsoever. And I can tie intensity into the championship again.
Yeah.
Phoenix. I watched that entire race, and I was not on the edge of my seat.
Yay, Elliott won. Okay.
Well, I mean, like I said, good for Chase Elliott winning, but there just wasn't, it was just weird that even though he got a penalty and he had to start at the back, you still have the other three that are starting at the front. If he wouldn't have had the penalty, it would have been all four of them, and they were all still up front. Chase Elliott, once he got there, it was like the top four was just them. What's the point in throwing everybody else on the track if it's just them at the front the entire time? So
no, I hear you, man. 100%.
We talked about it. We thought Kevin Harvick was going to be a factor. Maybe Martin Truex Jr. would go out there and win. No, it wasn't intensity. It was just those four, and then it kind of got Chase Elliott got out there, and Keselowski wasn't going to catch him. And I don't know, intensity, like you said, Daytona and Talladega. That's about it.
That's about it. Yep, I couldn't agree more, and that's why I rated it the way I did. But overall rating of 2020, Preston, I started it off, but I'm going to start off with you. The overall rating that you gave 2020 NASCAR season.
So the overall rating that I came out to was just 6, and I'm kind of okay with that.
Yeah.
I think that seems about fair. I mean, I hate to bag on the sport of NASCAR. I've been a fan of NASCAR almost practically since I was in diapers watching, even though I didn't know anything about it then. My parents were really big into it. And then my parents just kind of dropped off in recent years because it just hasn't been that. I mean, my dad even told me before, years down the road, he says, I don't really care too much for NASCAR anymore. It's just not that exciting anymore. Oh, there you go. So, I mean, my parents used to be into it. We'd go to Darlington every year. We had the season tickets, the same seats every single time. And I think I'm okay with rating this season a 6. Yes, it was cool that we got the whole season in. Kudos to NASCAR. Great job. But if I could say 6, I'd say a 6. Yay. And I would the fist would not go very far in the air.
No, I totally understand, man. I couldn't agree with you more. Mine's right there with you within the margin of error, I guess one would say. 6.2 for me, overall rating for 2020, and I couldn't agree with you more. The intensity, I feel like, was manufactured. It was unorganic. It shouldn't have been like that. It should be either it's a fun, exciting race or it's not. And if it's not, it's okay. We can work on it in the future, but don't try to make it sound good when it isn't good. You can't, pick up a turd and polish it and say it's a whatever, I don't know what analogy would be good with that, but you can't take a turd, put fishing hooks on it and say they're pearl earrings. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and
I can't, I know that I talked about how I wasn't a fan of the commentary over the season, especially with NBC. I'm no way trying to bag on the commentators. I think it's great. I think it's good to have former drivers in there to explain a little bit more, but it just seemed like they were trying to make it sound exciting when it really wasn't.
No, you're absolutely right. And I would have to say that with that, look, 2020 is a year we're going to want to soon forget. It doesn't matter if you're a sports fan or a politician or a lot of factors. 2020 is a year you're going to want to forget. This year is a bust for everybody. I don't care who you are. Unless you had stock in N95 mask and gloves and face shields, then you're booming. You're doing great.
Yeah.
But man, I was glad to go to the Daytona 500. I'm glad I'm going again in 2021. You know, with Unhinged and going to be doing that thing down there. It's going to be a lot of fun. Hope you can make it. But after that, after the pandemic, it was like tiptoeing. No practice, no qualifying. We don't know what to expect. We don't want to wreck the cars because we still got a championship to go win. And I felt like it was a lot of tiptoeing, a lot of that. And even the racing that was fun, I mean, the caution would come out, and that's when the exciting stuff would happen. Okay, green, white, checkered. Let's see what happens. And that was the exciting part. It shouldn't be like that.
No.
We shouldn't have to depend and anticipate a caution coming out for a race to be interesting.
And that's what it seems like it's come down to lately. It just seems.
It has.
I mean, I'll touch on it. We can go right back to the championship races between the Truck Series and the Xfinity Series. Green, white, checkers. Yep. And watching the Cup race, I was just like, I turned on the scanner, the officials' radio, and I'm like, man, I hate to say conspiracy theories, but I was like, man, I really feel like maybe they might bring out a caution to make this interesting because this has not been a very good race at all.
No, it hasn't been, and it's unfortunate that I rated it at 6.2, but it's okay. You know what? It's in the books. There's nothing I could do about it, so why even worry about it?
I thought that they were playing it up high, too, when we said with no practice, no qualifying, oh, what's it going to be like when they go into that first turn? And I was like, oh, man, this could be really exciting, and then it was not.
No, every time they made it through there, fine. It was like, or except for Stenhouse. During, like, lap 2 at Darlington when they came back. Poor Stenhouse.
Yeah, poor guy.
Oh, well. But, man, that was our 2020 season review for NASCAR, and I'm pretty happy with that. I'm happy.
Maybe we could ask the fans what they think, too. Maybe we should. I think we should put a poll out there and just ask, what does everybody else think?
We'll ask when this episode drops, and we'll say on Twitter and Facebook, we rated it this. What do you guys think?
I think we could say on a scale of 1 to 10, what do you think the season was overall?
Yeah.
I think that'd be fair enough.
I think the average will be maybe around where we're at, 5s and 6s.
I think it would be too.
So, but that'd be interesting to see what the rest of the Marbleheads think. But that was our year in review, and now we're just going to go ahead and get into our final thoughts here on this episode. After these messages from Unhinged Sports Network, if you're listening to us on that, and ad read from us, and we'll be right back with our final thoughts.